Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm Representative April Berg, and I am so excited that you've decided to join me in my kitchen on this beautiful Tuesday. I am beyond thrilled to have a colleague from a different state with me today to talk about something that so many of you have reached out and asked me about, and that's voting rights. So, with me today in my kitchen is Representative Kim Schofield from Georgia's 60th Legislative District, and she serves in the General Assembly, what we would call the House here. So, Rep Kim, welcome to my kitchen. It's great to see you.
Hey, Rep April, thank you so much for having me in your kitchen today. I'm in my car, so you've got a mobile kitchen as well. But
Yes.
again, thank you. I'm excited about having this great dialogue about such an important subject and timely. When we talk about Georgia and voting rights and preserving our right to vote, we've got to get to the kitchen table and talk about that. The best things happen at the kitchen table.
Absolutely. And just so I can let viewers know just a little bit about you, because I tell you what, your biography is amazing. You've been serving the good people of Georgia. It sounds like Atlanta and some of the outlying suburbs since 2017. You sit on small business development, as well as health and human services and interstate cooperation committees. And you also are what I consider to be an amazing thought leader in the healthcare space, as well as a small business owner who is rocking and rolling, helping folks be their best selves. So, let folks at home know a little bit more about your leadership and some other things that you're doing, because you are literally amazing and doing such good work across the country.
Listen, I'm only amazing because I hang out with great people around me, and I have the best district in Georgia. Which, if you ever come to
All
Atlanta,
right.
I have the Atlanta airport, and then I have the 5 cities around Atlanta. And so, serving in 2000, I started as an advocate. I was advocating for the disease called lupus, which is a disease that I've lived with for over 22 years. And I just felt like the state needed to know a little bit more and recognize it as a real disease. So I got in and became a voice and a champion. And ultimately, after 8 years of advocacy work, I was able to get my first bill passed as a constituent and creating the
Wow.
Council on Lupus Education and Awareness. And from there, I was asked to, because I built some relationships across the aisle. It's about people first, not politics.
Yes.
And as I started learning about the system and navigating, I ended up working on the Family Care Act and I got that passed, and so human trafficking bills. And then in 2017, my senator asked me to run for office. And you know what? Sometimes women have to be asked
Wow.
7 times before they'll even consider. But I just knew at that particular time that, you know what, this was my next. And
Yep.
so every day I wake up with the intention of knowing that we can do better, we must do better. And how do I make it better for the people and the citizens of Georgia?
And thank you for that work, because I tell you, it's not just affecting your constituents, but it's affecting all of us nationwide. So, and it's powerful work. And again, to your point, it all starts at kind of kitchen tables. So I love that had your first bill pass as a constituent, because that's what we do is we listen to folks and we do the work of the people. So that's awesome. Well, and speaking of the people, that's why I have you here today. And that's what I wanted to talk about is that, Georgia passed one of the first really restrictive voting rights bills post 2020, right? So it was that knee-jerk reaction, that, kind of the big lie taking to the next level. And so can you tell viewers at home what that law is, what that SB 202, what that encompasses and why it's so restrictive?
Yeah, Georgia has done a lot of things right, but if I ever have to point my finger and say this is the worst thing they could have possibly done, this is it. SB 2022 is a horrific, it is a deplorable, it is a disgusting
Mhm.
bill. And that's to put it mildly. Not only does it restrict the rights, it just takes away the humanity and the dignity for those that have been fighting for our right to vote for years. Everything our ancestors have done as a result of this bill in this moment is being stripped away. And so it's hard to sit here and imagine how anyone with a conscience can say
Hmm.
that any part of this bill is an okay bill, or that it's not trying to restrict the votes and access to votes. It is the truly the bill is just doing or thinking it's going to do things like just basic things, allowing folks
Yeah.
not to take to get water
Hmm.
or food while standing in line in hot Georgia sun. And that's not, that's just a basic human right. But, you know,
Yeah.
removing the ballot boxes and the absentee ballot boxes, you know, restricting
Hmm.
early voting, you know, cutting down on the number of hours when we talk about weekend voting, you know, no fair
Yeah.
election here in Georgia. And, you know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, let's be honest, the right to vote is a sacred vote and it should be
Yeah.
protected. And anytime we get into a battle where there are people that are trying to undermine and take away a human value, that's when we fight. Georgia
Yeah.
is actively pursuing every angle. This bill, again, it goes against every core value. Yes, you know, when we talk about the elections, there are still people that do not believe that Joe
Hmm.
Biden is should have won that election. And whether you believe that he should or should not have won the election,
Yeah.
the data is clear. You know, I don't understand how we believe the data on some point when you say, oh, you know, trust
Hmm.
the data when it comes to COVID. But then when it comes to the election, you say, well, the data is skewed. It is all part of
Yeah.
this whole big lie. You know, losers lose.
Yep.
And, you know, we
Mhm.
cannot just sit back and allow
Yes.
anyone to take our votes away and make it uncomfortable to vote, make it impossible, and put up all these barriers. We're not going to sit back and take
Absolutely.
this anymore, April. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and I think you really did sum it up. I think if people were thinking about what happened in Georgia and they wanted to have three adjectives to describe the bill, you could not have said it better: despicable, deplorable, and inhumane. And that's the bill, to your point, is all three of those things plus some. And it's based on that fallacy of the fraud, the big lie of
Hmm.
2020. So, all that said, and given your background, is this good for business? Right? I'm looking at this going like, is this good for Georgia business? Is this good? Is this a good bill that's going to help economic development in your state?
Different results. How many ways can we count? Okay. How many
Mhm,
times can we
mhm.
count? I mean,
Oh, I think we got a little bit of lag there.
the board. You know, it's a divisive bill. It is actually dismantling systems that are already fallible and have had a lot of degree of improvement that need to be done. And what this bill does is further divide us. You
Mm-hmm.
have organizations and companies that, you know, will not speak out against the bill, but they know in their core value to they are that this bill is it's anti, it's anti everything the core value of this bill believes. And so,
Yeah.
you know, we can no longer sit back, and we're not in Georgia going to sit back and align ourselves on our business and economic
Hmm.
value with something that are really.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because then that's why I wanted to tie it back to business and especially small business development, that this is not good for it. And it's really that systematic dismantling of really what's a basic human right, voting, that folks aren't going to, if they can't vote, they're not going to want to come spend their money, live there, work for a corporation somewhere where they can't
Yeah.
exercise their basic right to vote.
And that's what
Absolutely.
we do. And that's exactly what
Hmm.
we do is we kind of disenfranchise the people, so that there's an either or. And you know,
Yeah.
I don't know what system can operate effectively and efficiently when you start thinking about an either or.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I have to kind of juxtapose that with where we are in our state, in Washington state. We have 100% mail-in ballots. And I say that because it feels as if, we are in two different worlds when I think about Georgia and I think about our state here, because we do have that 100% mail-in ballots, ballot boxes everywhere. there is still, a certain contingency of folks who say, oh, we've had fraud, which we absolutely have not. And you've got bipartisan support about election integrity in our state. So talk to me about what would that look like in Georgia? Because right now there's part of this law is taking away ballot boxes, taking away the ability to do absentee ballots in a normal, easy fashion. So what would 100% mail-in ballots look like in your state?
It would look like we won.
Come on.
It looks like,
Come on.
what the real problem is for years
Yeah.
they've been the system that was designed, and when we took that system and we turned it on them, then all of a sudden you want to cry foul, and it's not fair. But ballot
Hmm.
boxes and making it convenient for people to vote and mail in votes were something that worked for them for a while until we
Yeah.
figured out the game plan. And so you
Yeah.
can't cry foul and change the rules because you don't like
Yep.
the outcome of the game. And that
Hmm.
to me is just not just it's an integrity issue, that when you
Hmm.
are so bent on winning that you will at any cost compromise
Hmm.
character, integrity, and democracy. What have we become? This
Yeah.
state is not moving in the direction that it's for the people. It has become
Yeah.
for the party, for the party. And that's why
Yeah.
we won't again sit back. Yes, I love that that Washington State gets it. They do it right,
Thank you.
effectively, and it's not perfect. I know
Yep.
none of it
Yeah.
is
I was going to
perfect,
say, I know
but when you come
yep.
back to a core value and a fundamental
Hmm.
principle of democracy, there is no compromise. let
Yeah.
let the ballot, let the vote speak for themselves. They didn't expect us to mobilize as strongly as
Hmm.
we did, and when we did and we won, then it was let's find out what
Find a
happened.
way.
What happened was you lost,
Yeah.
plain and simple.
Well,
You
and I think
lost.
you brought up something important that you said was rules, right? And the rules changing. And when I read SB 202, and for those of you out there who have not taken a look at the digest of that bill, it's so insidious that the rules are very hard to follow, even as laid out in the bill. And so, really, the access to voting, even if you follow the quote unquote rules that SB
Right.
202 lays out, you can still be disenfranchised. It is not simple. They have made it so archaic and difficult that you're not even sure what rules you're following. And so, talk to me a little bit about that, because now you're trying to strategize about a game whose rules are constantly changing.
Well, and that's the real crux of the matter. How do you start a game and in the middle of the game
Hmm.
you don't know which way the rules are going to change? When we look at
Yep.
what's going on a county level in Fulton County, which is a county that I represent, and they're changing the Board of Elections to strip them of their power so that
Hmm.
now all of the General Assembly has the power on votes. So if you don't like the way the outcome of the election is, then what happens
Yep.
is you change the vote. So you tell me how
Yeah.
we can strategize, and I think the strategy is going to, again, it will be played out in the courts on the legal end, for us,
Hmm.
for us, it is going to be played out at the vote, at the ballot box. Guess what? We did it before, we'll do it again. We're going to turn out the vote.
Absolutely.
And this way, when you look at the numbers, the census numbers, and it showed that
Yeah.
Georgia has changed.
Hmm.
And when we look at the demographics and everything, we are no longer, there is no majority here of white people. Let's just call it what it is. That Georgia has changed. The
Hmm.
face of Georgia in the rural communities have changed. And so knowing that when you're
Yes.
drawing and redrawing district lines, how are you then going to move a line to get the people that don't exist? Listen,
Hmm.
April, it's like simple. When you think about strategy, what was tried was if we can restrict abortion laws, then we
Yep.
would say is that you will increase the population. So it is layered up, levels on top of levels, but it's still not working. How many more
Hmm.
ways are you trying to skin this cat? It is not going
Yeah.
to work. And Georgia recognizes that, which is why they're pushing back so hard to make it impossible for us to vote.
Absolutely.
We had a problem earlier in the primaries where the lines were long. We fixed that problem, and people in the general were able to come in and vote, and with the other options and multiple ways of voting,
Hmm.
we were in and out. You don't want us to sit home and be able to mail anything. You don't want us to have access to a drop box. You don't want us to
Yeah,
have access to food and water. You don't want us to have access to making sure that we have weekend voting. You don't want us to have access
exactly.
to, okay, so what do you want us to have access to? What is it?
Exactly. Absolutely nothing. And that's the whole, right? That's the point. You got at the exact point. And the demographic changes. It's funny. So for those of you watching out there, Kim, it's like you read my notes because that was one of my questions about the demographics. And those are changing. And instead of changing the argument to say, how can we be more inclusive of these demographic changes? It's like, no, how can we change the rules to block
Right.
access from folks exercising their democracy? So that's exactly that's happened in Georgia. I, and I can't. I
And
mean,
it's just
despicable,
wicked. It's
deplorable, and
wicked.
inhumane. It
And it's
is. It
wicked.
absolutely is.
When you think about wicked and you look at, when I think
Hmm.
about the word wicker, and it's twisted. So you have a concept that
Mm,
is just twisted, and you will do anything necessary to win. Again, it's not, what I don't think people realize, it's not just hurting the vote, is not just hurting the party, it is hurting their own people. And so when you
hmm.
are willing to throw yours under the bus as well, is the system perfect? I by no means am going to sit here and say that it's a perfect system. But what we've learned is that there are ways we can work to make it better, as opposed to tearing and destroying one party
Yeah,
for the sake of something else. At some point, you hold on to everything and you're scrapping with everything you have, April. And if it's not working, go back to the drawing board and say, how can we make this better together
exactly.
instead of tearing us
Exactly.
apart? So you guys have done it well. And, I'd like to know, what were some of the barriers that you are even seeing when it comes to voting in Washington State? What are you seeing?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's a great question. For us, it's all about getting folks registered and getting them to turn in that ballot, right? Because so there is that energy around polling places. There is that energy around election day. And for us, you get your ballot, and election day could be today, tomorrow, next week, a week from there. And so making sure it doesn't get under that on your kitchen table, under that stack of bills, and making sure you get it into the ballot box, which are readily accessible. And so when we first started this, one of the things we saw was that we required postage, right? And of course, a stamp doesn't cost a lot of money, but in some ways that became a poll tax and a barrier. So we just in the last few years got rid of that. So now it's postage paid, you put it in the box, and it's done. But to your point, nothing's ever perfect. We're still perfecting it so that we can get more folks to vote. But so one question for you though, and I love to talk with folks about, moonshots. And I think with voting, we have so many moonshots, right? Just to get us to full access and full franchisement. So what would be your moonshot? Something that seems completely impossible yet completely necessary as it pertains to voting rights in Georgia.
I think my moonshot, and I love that whole concept. If I had a moonshot, what I would love to see is to for Georgia to accept where we are in the change and the transition. Change is
Hmm.
internal. Transition is change is external, transition is internal. So there is a level of anxiety that's going on with all of
Hmm.
these changes. My moonshot is for us to embrace the change. Not all change
Right.
is bad change. And so if we could take this bill and really discard and start at looking at the basic premise of that we all want to do right for our constituents and the people that we serve, and then make a bill that is inclusive rather than
Hmm.
exclusive. That's my
Come
moonshot,
on.
is that we put this baby to rest and say, you know what? In life, there's going to be winners and losers. And this is not a win for one and a loss for the other. This is that we
Hmm.
have a system that's broken, and we've revealed the racist overtones and undertones here. We need to address that. We need to address the disenfranchisement. We need to
Hmm.
address the moral decay that is going
Yeah.
on, and we need to get back to the basics. My moonshot is let's get back to the basics and really start making it about the people and the people's voice instead of a party voice.
Absolutely. I love that. And why does that have to be a moonshot? You know what I'm saying? That should
Because
be
common
every day,
sense ain't
all day.
common. Common
Oh,
sense
thank
ain't
you.
common.
Common sense is
You know,
not common. And don't you
it's
know, serving
not
where you serve,
common.
serving where I serve, we know that. Oh my gosh, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we're going to have a part two on this because I
Oh,
think there's
I'd
a lot
love
to dig
to.
into. It would be amazing. And I just want to let viewers know because I know we're watching Rep Schofield in the car. She is not driving. So just so everybody knows that, because sometimes I get people going, wait, what's going on? No, Rep Kim is not driving. She is focused here on this conversation. But the other thing I want to let folks know, programming wise, is my amazing producer's on vacation this week. And so it looks like we're on episode 38 talking about childcare as infrastructure, but everybody knows we're on episode 39 talking about voting rights. So I am just like big shout out to Brandon, who's not helping us on the back end today, but you can tell clearly it takes a village. And so he's much missed this week. But thank you so much, Kim,
Thank
for
you,
being here
April.
and
Rep, we've
sharing
got to
your
get to,
time.
yes, yes.
Yes,
We're
we have
in
got to
this
get
together,
together.
we've got to get together. Thank you for allowing me to be at the table. I think about my own kitchen and some of my drawers in the kitchen. I've got to move things and discard
Yes,
things, and but
yes.
to make space. So thank you for allowing me the space today to talk about voting rights.
Well, thank you so much for doing all that you're doing there in Georgia. Thank you to Rep Scott, who I think is kind of close by to you. So
Yes.
thank her as well for being here on the show. And I'm hoping to just, yeah, again, have a deeper conversation and talk more because this is so important. We got to get there. And in states like ours, are there to a certain extent. But I think if we can do this nationwide, if we can have it so everybody just gets a ballot the same way you get your water bill, then we will have gotten there, and everybody's
Yes.
voice will be heard. So thank you
All
so much.
right.
Well, and thank you to
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah, and thank you to all my viewers out there. I will see you next week. We'll be right here with City Council President from Snohomish, Linda Redmond, chopping it up about the environment and some amazing kind of points where they meet things that happen at our kitchen table. So that'll be a great conversation next week, right here, Tuesday at 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks.